thought I would make a video of nonfiction books that I have read or listened to that have made an impact in my life. Now, these are books that I've read over the last couple of years, and they live rent-free in my mind. They've made me think a lot about politics and mental illness and friendship and grief and love, history. So here they are. The first is The Best Minds, A Story of Friendship, Madness, and Good Intentions by Jonathan Rosen. I got it for Christmas from my sister. When Jonathan was a young boy, his best friend was Michael Lauder. And Michael Lauder was charming and brilliant, and the two had a lot in common. Both had fathers who were college professors. Both got into Yale. Both were somewhat interested in the same things. And a childhood friend is someone who you share more than just a friendship with. Both of them seemed destined for great things. But then Michael started to change. His behavior became unpredictable. He grew delusional and paranoid and was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. When Michael, unfortunately, and this isn't really a spoiler, I think it's because, it's on the back cover, and the Michael Lauder story has been on the news for several years. When he kills his pregnant girlfriend during a psychotic episode, Jonathan has to face the painful truth that his childhood friend is a murderer. The book is heartbreaking. We get to know Michael through Jonathan's eyes, so we don't view him as a villain, at least throughout most of the book. The crime is committed near the last quarter of the book, so we get to know Michael through Jonathan's eyes. We really begin to empathize with him and the nightmares that he's going through. So when the tragedy happens, we start to question even our own judgment, because we become so close to Jonathan, and so close to Michael through Jonathan. And it's a novel, or not a novel, it's a nonfiction that definitely makes us consider the weakness in mental health supports that exist in our society. So it is The Best Minds by Jonathan Rosen. The second one is Eve, How the Female Body Drove 200 Million Years of Human Evolution by Kat Bohannon. In Eve, Kat Bohannon tackles questions that scientists should have explored long ago. It's a groundbreaking history of the female body. It places women at the center of the evolutionary success of Homo sapiens. She is a researcher, she's a writer. It answers such questions as, why do women live longer than men? Why do women experience menopause? Why are women more likely to get Alzheimer's? How did wet nursing lead to the growth of civilization? Does the, quote, female brain really exist? So, as I mentioned, she tackles these questions that really make us realize that the answers to these questions should have been answered years and years and years ago. I read most of it. I picked and chose my chapters to choose those that best pertain to me and where I was in my life. So your chapter 1 is milk, chapter 2 is womb, 3 is perception, legs is chapter 4, 5 is tool, 6 is brain, 7 is voice, 8 is menopause, and 9 is love. So it is Eve, How the Female Body Drove 2 Million Years of Evolution by Kat Bohannon. Really, really good. The House of My Mother by Sherry Franke is the third. I became fascinated with the case of Ruby Franke, who was an LDS mommy blogger who basically, I was going to say turned into a monster, but we find out that she wasn't exactly this epitome of motherhood that she portrayed on her vlog. Was her behavior shaped by religion? Was her behavior shaped by this manipulative therapist that she became really, really close with? Her name was Jodi Hildebrandt. These are questions that I had when I was watching documentaries on the case. But this particular nonfiction book, The House of My Mother, is written by her eldest daughter, Sherry Franke. So we get to read Sherry's version of that reality. And I listened to it, and Sherry herself reads it. It tells of her growing up with this mommy influencer who was strictly religious, and the torment that she suffered under her mother. It's beautifully written. So the subject matter is quite heavy, obviously, but Sherry Franke is such a gifted writer that I was really quite amazed. I was quite amazed by her voice, her word choice, her metaphor, and she's a very good narrator too. So if you listen to it, very easy to listen to. The next is Red Famine, Stalin's War on Ukraine by Anne Applebaum. I bought this one a while ago, and full transparency, I am part Ukrainian. So I'm really quite embarrassed to say that I didn't know about Holodomor, the starving of 5 million Ukrainians by Stalin. And so I bought this book. And Anne Applebaum is kind of the quintessential expert on Ukraine, both this time in history, and she has written another one, I can't remember what it was called, that deals with the current invasion of Russia in Ukraine. The book gives us a detailed account of Holodomor and includes pictures as well, so heads up on that. As I mentioned, it was a man-made famine caused by Stalin, used to kill Ukrainians and suppress their independence. So this is, the whole suppression of independence has been something that Ukrainians have been dealing with pretty much most of their lives. Reading this made one thing really, really clear, that Ukraine is in every way, culturally, linguistically, artistically, politically, and historically separate from Russia. So it's Red Famine, Stalin's War on Ukraine by Anne Applebaum. The next one is The Witches, and I couldn't find my copy of it. Suspicion, Betrayal, and Hysteria in 1692 Salem by Stacy Schiff. And I bought this book years ago because I was going to a conference in Boston, and I was going to be sure to take a trip to Salem. And it's something that I've always wanted to do. Stacy Schiff is a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian, so if you choose to read this book, her research skills are, as far as I'm concerned, impeccable, and she's got a really effective way of taking the information that she's researched and composing it into a very readable text. I didn't know the witch trials only lasted 1 year, approximately, but apparently they did. And when you think about it, so much damage and paranoia that happened in such a short amount of time resulted in effects that lasted for years afterward. So it's The Witches, Suspicion, Betrayal, and Hysteria in 1692 Salem. The next is Unreconciled, and I don't have my copy of that. I actually put it in a little free library in my neighborhood. Unreconciled, Family, Truth, and Resistance by Jesse Wendt. Wendt argues that reconciliation is a flawed concept. He is an Indigenous individual who lives in Canada and an amazing writer. So he argues that reconciliation is a flawed concept, that peace between First Nations and the state of Canada can't be recovered through reconciliation because no such relationship ever existed. You have to be in a relationship first in order to ask for forgiveness or in order to reconcile, but that relationship never existed. His writing is powerful. He conveys his message clearly. He draws on his own experiences growing up as an Indigenous person in Canada, and it's definitely an important book, very readable, with an important message. And last but definitely not least is one that I read on my Kindle, and it's called Liliana's Invincible Summer by Cristina Rivera Garza. I have a little backstory to this one. So years and years and years ago, I decided to visit London all by myself. And it was a wonderful trip. I visited plays and palaces and museums and galleries. And one particular visit to the Saatchi Gallery, and if you've ever been to the Saatchi Gallery, its exhibits are, I don't want to say they're controversial because controversy is in the eye of the beholder, but they definitely are thought-provoking. So it's the Saatchi Gallery in London if you ever get there. Among such exhibits is, for example, a real shark in formaldehyde, a bust of a man carved in his own frozen blood. But there was this small room, and its walls were covered with drawings and pages of writing that turned out to be pages from a journal. So when you entered the room and you began to read and view the artwork, you realized that you were reading the journal of a teenage girl. Her loves, her fears, her day-to-day life, and you became immersed in her world and you really began to know her. So as you walked in the room, you kept reading and you kept viewing her artwork. However, once you got near to the exit, all of a sudden there were these newspaper articles telling of a murder. Her murder, and so you got to know this girl and you got to really, really understand this intimate part of her life, and then you realize that she was murdered. And it was probably an exhibit that had the most impact in my life ever. I've never seen or felt that way ever before. And I can't remember what the exhibit was called, and I tried to Google it and find out if it still exists, but to no avail. Anyway, that being said, Liliana's Invincible Summer by Cristina Rivera Garza reminded me of this exhibit because it was almost the exact same experience. Garza's book is a detailed account of her quest to obtain the police file on her sister Liliana's murder. Using that file along with letters and notebooks and photos and journals and interviews and her own memories of her sister. So she has this huge collection of journals and photos and notebooks that her sister kept. And she's trying to piece together the mosaic of her sister's tragedy, trying to understand why and how her sister could have been so brutally murdered by a boyfriend. So it's not that she is trying to figure out who killed her sister. She's trying to understand how her sister got to this place, how her sister formed this relationship with this man that ended up brutally killing her. She does this so skillfully. She doesn't editorialize. She allows us, the reader, to know who her sister Liliana is for ourselves. And because she does this, she makes her sister's death truly and emotionally impactful. So those are my books. The first, The Best Minds, a story of friendship, madness, and good intentions. Eve, how the female body drove 2 million years of evolution. The House of My Mother. Red Famine, Stalin's War on Ukraine. The Witches, Suspicion, Betrayal, and Hysteria in 1692 Salem. Unreconciled, Family, Truth, and Resistance. And Liliana's Invincible Summer. So those are the nonfiction books that have impacted my life over the last couple of years. What are some of yours?